Hello there, YouTube. I am David J.G. Doyle, also known as Ozzyroth or Ozzyroth7. And here I am with my good friend and the director of the upcoming fan-made movie, My Little Pony: Journey of the Spark, Eric Ridenour. How are you, Eric?
Hey, David. Very nice to be here. I'm doing fairly well, thank you.
Great to hear. Now, Ridenour, I love that last name. Do you know its origin?
It comes from my dad's side of the family. He is a German. Him and his family, my dad's side of the family, they originally came from Michigan. That's where my dad spent most of his life. Eventually, he moved out here to California. Met my mom, who is actually Salvadorian, so she is Hispanic. Yeah, so I'm a mix of both. But the name Ridenour, I believe, when I looked it up one time, I think it actually means farmers or like swamp dwellers who lived in Germany. I think that's literally what I read one time. So it's like, whoa, my ancestors lived in a swamp.
You got a better deal than Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah, that's true.
His last name in German means idiot.
That's pretty funny.
But that's a fascinating origin story.
Mm-hmm.
But what about yourself? Where did you come from and grow up?
Well, it's really funny because most people know me as a Disney fanatic, and I was actually born in Anaheim, California, in a hospital just a few streets away from Disneyland. So I guess that's where my Disney genes kind of come from. But I was born in Anaheim on April 1st, 1993. And then eventually I went to live with my grandmother in my grandmother's house in Corona, California. That's where I spent most of my life. There was a period, though, when my mom and my dad, when they were married, they had moved out of my grandmother's house and went to live up in Riverside, which is not too far from Corona. It's just on the edge of it. But we lived in an apartment for a short while, for a few years, during that time period of which I found out that... well, actually, no, not during that time period, but that was when my mom and my dad had actually filed for a divorce. So...
Ouch.
Yeah. It was around 98, so roughly when I was about 5 years old. So it happened at a very early age. Eventually, after my parents had split up, we moved back with my grandmother in Corona. And as I was going through elementary school, my mom had actually started noticing really strange things about me. And eventually, by the time that I was in 4th grade, I was officially diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
Huh. A fellow Aspergian.
Yes, I am, actually.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention that explains a few things, particularly when it comes to your fascination with animation. Though when it comes to animation in general, what are your favorite movies?
Oh, God, there's so many. Particularly, I love a lot of movies that... I like a lot of dark animated movies, primarily the ones that we're never really afraid to talk down to children remotely.
Like Don Bluth's work.
Yes, like the works of Don Bluth. I grew up loving The Secret of Nim. I loved The Land Before Time, An American Tale, All Dogs Go to Heaven. But then other ones that I really liked were The Iron Giant was one I remember growing up with a lot when I was a kid. I loved the heck out of The Iron Giant.
That is one of Brad Bird's best films.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, easily.
It's still so underrated. I just don't get why it's on TV or anything more often. Especially since Brad Bird is the director behind The Incredibles and Ratatouille.
Yeah, which is funny because Ratatouille is actually my favorite Pixar film. Out of all of them, that's the one that I love the most. So I'm a huge fan of Brad Bird. I also grew up loving Cats Don't Dance a lot when I was a kid. I have that on DVD, but I used to watch it all the time. I think I overplayed I think I overplayed the VHS that I used to rent out at the video store. I used to play it over and over again. I watched it like crazy.
Cats Don't Dance. Not only is that one of my favorites, I too think that is extremely underrated.
Yeah, it's very, very underrated.
Not to mention that, in my opinion, it has Randy Newman's best songs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Especially that song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tell Me Lies is amazing. That's a great song. Really great soundtrack.
And then they get Natalie Cole, the daughter of Nat King Cole, to do the singing voice of the lead female character.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I knew that she had, I knew that last name sounded familiar. It's like, is she in, any relation at all to, to King Cole? But it was it's just a lot of things about that movie, primarily really the medium of animation, primarily when I used to grow up watching those films, always fascinated me in terms of how they did it. I mean, I liked a ton of different kinds of, animation styles, and primarily the two that I love the most is traditional and stop motion. Stop motion, I think, has given way to some of the best and some of the edgiest animated films that I've seen over pretty much that I've seen. I mean, nowadays you've gotten movies like Coraline and then Paranorman, which I thought was a fantastic movie. And then you've also gotten The Night Before Christmas, and then Fantastic Mr. Fox and James and the Giant Peach, and a ton of other ones that I can't name off right off the top of my head. But stop motion is a great medium, and traditional is one that I will always have a very warm place in my heart for. Okay,
I'm going to ask a question which is probably a really stupid question, but are you familiar with Hayao Miyazaki's work?
It's funny because I grew to love Miyazaki, or particularly Studio Ghibli, a lot when I was a kid, because since I didn't have a father figure a lot when I was a kid, I grew up in a household primarily dominated by women. So a lot of my personality, and I think a lot of my more feministic views, came from the fact that I grew up in a house where it was nothing but women. So when I would watch something like the films of Hayao Miyazaki, I would grow to love those because it introduced me to the idea that sometimes maybe a female protagonist can actually be a lot more interesting than a male protagonist, and that kind of showed a lot when I was growing up. It's for some reason I just found films and stories about a female character being in the lead role a lot more interesting than a male being in the main role, and that was something that I loved about Miyazaki.
Yeah, he was the man who mastered that. I have a preference to how they write their younger female leads, because when I see some of the younger male leads, they have a tendency to be whiny. You want a good example? Tidus from Final Fantasy X. Though he actually did have a few charming moments, and I think it's more of the script than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree more or less on the script. I did like Tidus, not necessarily for his personality, but just the fact that, in some of the later Final Fantasy games, there was more of the melodramatic and more of the edgier characters. So it's to kind of get a character like Tidus, or even what's the name of the character from Final Fantasy IX?
Zidane.
Yeah, Zidane. Yeah.
The best example of a young teenage man.
Yeah, and having enthusiastic characters like that always really, it's always really refreshing to see. But yeah, I mean, Tidus as a character, in terms of the way that he's written, he has a lot of problems, but
he's nothing but a problem.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Considering that Final Fantasy X, and especially Final Fantasy XII, had a serious identity crisis.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that I generally didn't like about Final Fantasy XII. I love Final Fantasy XII as a game, but the story about Ash, trying to reclaim her kingdom was a hell of a lot more interesting than the whole story going on with Vaughn. Why Vaughn was even there, I have no idea.
Believe it or not, there's an explanation.
I can explain that, actually.
The protagonist,
the director,
was either going to
the
be
original
Ash,
protagonist
Balthius,
was
or
either
Marsh.
going to be Ash herself.
The director said, no. We need
Or
a younger
both here.
protagonist so our
The
audience
director
can
said,
relate better.
no.
Which I
We
really
need a
don't
younger
understand.
protagonist so our
Considering
audience
how
can
some
relate
of their
better.
most popular leads are actually guys in their 20s. You want a good example? The most iconic, and in my opinion the best, Final Fantasy male lead is Cloud from 7, followed very closely by Noel from Final Fantasy 13-2, of all bloody places. Followed again by Zidane, Zack, and Cecil.
I really like Zidane as a character. He's probably like one of my favorite leads. I think my favorite Final Fantasy game, I think out of all of them, has to be 6 is my favorite.
6 is my second favorite, but only just, and I mean just.
Oh yeah, it's a great game. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it was the one that set the paradigm. Mm-hmm. 7 did so as well, but in a different way.
Well, yeah, 7, I mean, I give 7 a lot of credit because it was the game that made the Japanese role-playing game standard here in America. Gave it an audience.
Indeed. Okay, a bit of side trivia. When I was talking to my friend about these two games, we both agreed that Christopher Nolan should direct Final Fantasy VI, and Final Fantasy VII should be directed by Joss Whedon.
I can kind of see 7 being directed by Joss Whedon.
Yeah, because 7 is simple made sophisticated. 6 is the other way around, sophisticated made simple, in a good way.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely.
Which leads back to our original topic, which is animation, and it's great to see more of that in video games.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Usually it's really cool to actually see cutscenes nowadays in video games actually becoming more like a CG animated film. And like usually sometimes when they make the cutscenes of that high of standard, it really makes it feel like a lot more edgier material that normally really can't be done in an animated film, especially like here in the US, concerning what the market for animated films is like. You know, you kind of get something really unique out of that experience. I mean, a lot of people LARP on something like Metal Gear Solid 4 because it's nothing but cutscenes, but I mean, to some people, the story is really interesting. So being able to see the story kind of unfold as you go through it, you know, it makes you feel like you're a part of the experience. I mean, the same thing could be said for Uncharted. I mean, Uncharted is basically like a playable Indiana Jones film, like right in front of you. And you get so into it, and it makes you feel like you're playing a movie and you're part of the experience.
And that, in my opinion, is the sign of a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Games sucking you into the story just as much, if not more so, than the actual gameplay itself. I love that experience. Though it saddens me that some games actually fail in both areas, especially when they actually do try hard. Final Fantasy XIII is a prime example.
Final Fantasy XIII, because for Christmas last year, I got a PS3 finally, so I decided to pick up a few games. And I decided I wanted to pick up 13 because, I mean, it seems like 13 is, you know, the popular game to pick on. So I decided I wanted to form my own opinion on it. And yeah, it's not like most other Final Fantasy games that I've played, but I think it's fun, at least, to put in every once in a while and just kind of go through it. The story to me makes absolutely no sense, and I don't understand a majority of it, but I mean, to each his own. There's people who do, and there's people who love the hell out of 13, and there's people who really like it. So, I mean, it must have its audience, and it must be liked by some people. Granted, it's not liked by everybody, but I mean, there has to be an audience there if people actually like it, and it did well enough to actually warrant a sequel.
I think the reason why there's now a 13 franchise is because 13 Versus is taking so long to come out.
Yeah, Tetsuya Nomura.
Incredible man, incredible director. At times he can be a bit choppy with the stories, but there's always the effort of character development, proper character development. And even if he doesn't always succeed, his saving grace is creating an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah, I think that's his best strength. I usually tend to criticize things like, a majority of the Kingdom Hearts spin-offs, like After 2, just never really fascinated me all that much, but I go back to at least the first game. and I see, it has problems in its gameplay, but the story that they were trying to tell there, I mean, it's a very well-written story. I mean, it has a lot of emotion, it's very simple, and it took two franchises that people really did not think was going to fit together and blended them together and made it make sense.
I actually really did enjoy the first game, though my main gripes were actually some of the voice choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes the voice acting wasn't quite the best, but it still worked, so I do give it a
Why
pass.
would you get...
But when it comes to the voice choices...
the bass singer from NSYNC
why would you get
to
Lance
be
Bass
one of the most
as
sophisticated,
Well,
most
They
iconic
get the wrong kind of
video
star
game
power.
villains in
Casting
recent
the
history?
bass singer from NSYNC as one of the most iconic video game villains is just, as they say these days, an instant fail.
It's funny because my girlfriend's a huge fan of NSYNC.
Oh dear.
She would not be happy to hear that.
However, Lance actually isn't a bad actor. Again, I just think it was a serious miscast. Honestly, I actually could see him as a character from Final Fantasy, Zell specifically from Final Fantasy VIII. But Sephiroth? No. If that was up to me, I would have picked Crispin Freeman.
I gotta say, though, some of the voice changes made from Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2, I really did not enjoy at all. Aerith's voice, oh god, for the love of me, I could not stand that thing in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, but I give Mina Savaria a pass. Mainly because the story I've heard, she was just called in and asked to do this character, and she wasn't given any real time to actually identify who the character was. She was just told, okay, do these lines, and we have to do these quickly. Then again, I've just heard so many different things about Kingdom Hearts 2, about all the problems they've had, the director's issues. I've heard that the director was working with 6 clients from Disney and 6 clients from Square Enix on Skype phone while directing these actors and actresses. And in the end, all the director said was, could you do this line a little slower, a little faster? Okay, done. That's all I've heard. Though there's a funny story with Christopher Lee involving that. Apparently they only did it with him once, and then he said, "Alright, I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this. I'm going to read this script from the top to the bottom, and then I'm going home." Which is exactly what he did.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty... that's pretty interesting, actually.
Sir Christopher Lee has a huge knowledge of directing styles. After all, he's breaking 300 movie credits.
Oh, yeah, I mean, very prolific actor, too, especially. I mean, if you're going to get that guy for something, you got to make sure that you're not wasting an actor like that or their time remotely.
Indeed. Not only does that man know how to follow direction to the letter, he also knows how to direct himself.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which now leads back to one of our original topics. What inspired you to become a director?
That's actually a really interesting and very sentimental story. The very first movie that I ever saw when I was a kid was E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And when I was watching it originally, I didn't really know what to think of it really that much at first. But then when it gets to the scene later on in the film when Elliot and E.T. are riding their bike in the forest on Halloween night, and they're just about to go over the cliffside, and then E.T. uses his powers to make the bike fly over the forest and across the moon, like one of the most iconic scenes in film history, I was mesmerized. I was practically glued to the screen, and in the back of my mind, I don't know how old I was. I was maybe 4 or 5. I was very, very young when I saw it, but I was just saying to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to make movies as emotionally investing, as magical, as, as brilliantly made as something like this. Something that, that I can use, like a medium that I can use to take experiences from my own life and put them into the characters that I write and make people actually think, about what life is about and what, makes us as human beings special. I mean, that's something that I've always wanted to do with my films, and it was because of that film that I wanted to be a film director. So I basically studied as like studied. I watched DVD special features. I read books. I went to I since I lived in California, I went to Universal Studios all the time, and I would study things. Because after I've seen a movie so many times, I want to know how it's made. How did they accomplish this? How did they get it made? What were the challenges that they faced? How exactly did they get it from script to screen? And that stuff has always fascinated me a lot when it comes to actual filmmaking, and especially in animation, because like sometimes there is a lot of hurdles in live action or in animation, particularly in what is written down on the script. So it was like I was a huge fan of E.T., so much so that I actually wrote a letter out to Steven Spielberg up at Amblin Entertainment, and I was basically just telling him, Mr. Spielberg, your films, it's fascinated me, it's inspired me to want to make movies just like you. You were an inspiration to me. And he sent me this autographed picture back at the mail. Yeah, he sent me an autographed picture back in the mail, but I lost that thing. I've been looking for it for ages, but yeah, I mean, it was my prized possession for a long time. I did not want to let go of that thing. But that's where I got my start. I mean, I've been studying about film. I've been learning about film. And hey, I mean, I'm in college now, studying how, trying to get my certificate in film so that way I can actually get out into the film industry. So...
Kind of beat me to my next question there, actually. Where are you getting your training?
I am actually going to Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa up here in California, which is about a 30 to 45 minute drive from my house going on the freeway. But it's a great school. There have been some very prolific people that have actually gone there. One of the actresses from The Godfather actually studied at Orange Coast College, at the college that I went to. And there are people, visual effects people, and editors and writers who have worked on movies like Tron Legacy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, who actually graduated from that college. So they have a very good film program.
This just sounds truly wonderful.
Yeah, I love it there.
Who actually influenced and inspired you to be a director besides Steven Spielberg?
Miyazaki.
Of course, Miyazaki, the king of Japanese animation.
Burton. Also, Robert Zemeckis was another director that I really liked. Back to the Future, Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump. Also, a lot of my storytelling, like in terms of its tone, I got a lot of my storytelling sensibilities from Tim Burton's work. Primarily watching stuff like Edward Scissorhands a lot when I was little. Also, Edgar Wright is another director that I really like, who inspires my comedy. He worked on stuff like Scott Pilgrim, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead.
Edgar Wright is one of the great masters of comedy today.
Oh God, I love Edgar Wright's stuff. I love it. Love that guy to pieces. And then Don Bluth, yeah. Jim Henson is another one. Oh yeah, because I grew up watching The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth a lot when I was a kid. So those films actually were very inspiring to me as well. There's so many that really inspire my work. I don't think I'd be able to name off every single one of them because there's so many.
Indeed. What about Christopher Nolan and Joss Whedon?
I've enjoyed quite a bit of Christopher Nolan's work. Primarily, I think my favorite films that he's done, I think, are... I've really loved The Prestige. I think was one that he did. I also liked Insomnia. Insomnia is crazy. Inception was pretty good, too. The Dark Knight is a fantastic movie. From Joss Whedon's line of work, I actually like Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. I love Dr. Horrible. I've been recommended to watch Firefly a lot because I hear Firefly's fantastic.
Oh,
That... Oh, Foxy will have my eternal loathing for that.
That is hands down one of the best sci-fi series I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people tell me. It's on Netflix, so maybe I should go check it out sometime. I haven't had the time to. It's been on my must-watch list, though. I've been trying to get around to it.
Along with the movie based on the Firefly saga, Serenity. I can't recommend that enough.
Yeah, Serenity I hear is pretty good too. Loved The Avengers, like everybody. The Avengers was great, and I'm happy that he's going to be coming back to direct the sequel. So, really happy about that.
He was the only man for the job. He really was.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That man's writing is not only great, it's inventive. How he's able to take such a simple idea and then make it so complex is just beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it when somebody, like especially a writer and a director, like they can basically take the material and they can just like make it into something amazing.
Again, Final Fantasy VII did that. Mm-hmm. They took some simple concepts and then made it sophisticated and epic, making it into one of the most highly regarded video games of all time.
You know, I own a copy of Final Fantasy VII, but it's a 3-disc thing, but the first disc is so scratched it won't run.
Ouch.
So I can't play the other 2 discs. The other 2 discs are perfectly fine, but I can't play the game because the first disc is scratched. So
I'd give you mine, but it's PAL region.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, good thing I kept my PS2.
At least.
Yeah, because I mean, newer models of the PS3, they're not backwards compatible, which is a shame, but
well, that's probably because you can just download the games these days.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Probably. I actually need to go and see if Final Fantasy VII is actually on PlayStation Network. I need to check that soon.
They actually did re-release it, with a slight remaster to the graphics, but some huge tweaks to the script.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
Completely took out all translation errors, including the infamous, "This guy are sick."
All your base belong to us.
It also showed a little bit more sophistication with Sephiroth and his plan. Which is a good thing too, because I really hate it when people say that he's a whiny boy. He plans, he follows through with what he says, and not only does he do his own work, he manipulates the main characters. That is just cruel. And then his motivation. He wants to cleanse the world of corruption and get rid of all the people who he considers corrupted and filth, and keep the pure, which probably really isn't that many. And then take them to a new planet and create his own utopia. Mm-hmm. There's so much going on there.
Yeah, I've heard so many things about Final Fantasy VII, and I want to play it for myself. It's just, I got the screwed up copy that has the broken disc.
Get it on the network or on Steam. Worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, enough of the conversation for now. Time for the actual interview once again. Now I'm going to ask what everyone wants to know. How did you discover My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic?
The story behind that's interesting. I have friends who go with me to Disneyland, so I call them my Disneyland friends. And my friend Leanne and Rachel, they're very big animation fans like myself. So they were telling me, "Hey Eric, have you heard of a show called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic?" And just like everybody, when you first hear that name, I was just like, My Little Pony? What? Isn't that for girls? Or, it's like, no, it's actually a really well-written show. And so I was like, she was telling me, my friend Leanne was telling me, it has people who worked on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Powerpuff Girls, and, and like Dexter's Laboratory, like all that stuff. So I was like, you've got my interest. So I decided a few days later to go and look up the very first episode of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. I was a little hesitant to watch it at first, but, I decided to watch the pilot, Friendship is Magic Part 1 and 2, and I had no idea what I was watching. It was like, wow, this is really wonderfully animated. This is actually kind of smart. These characters are actually very interesting. I mean, the very first character that I can relate to is is an introverted, social character like myself. It's like, wow, that's actually really interesting. It's like, who worked on this show? So then I looked up Lauren Faust's name, and then I see credits like Iron Giant and Cats Don't Dance, and then Foster's Home, and then Powerpuff Girls, and I'm like, wow. So,
had a connection with her before you even realized it.
Yeah, I was just like, wow. So this is the person who's worked on like all these different things that I love. And then, so I decided to watch the second part. And then after Friendship is Magic Part 1 and 2 was over, I thought I was done. But then I ended up marathoning pretty much almost all of the first season in a weekend. And by the time that I got into the fandom, or by the time that I was watching it, the latest episode at that time period was the Cutie Mark Chronicles. So it was just near the tail end of season 1 actually coming to an end. So I mean, like, I went through the whole season, and I still didn't really know exactly what my thoughts on it were. So I didn't touch it for about a month or so. And then my friend, and who was actually executive producer on Journey of the Spark, my friend Edward Marmot, basically was saying, hey, Eric, I'm making all this fan art for this My Little Pony Friendship is Magic show. It's like, really? You like that show too? And he's like, yeah, I think it's a great show. So then I go and look it up, and then I see all of these grown men love this show. And I'm like, who the heck are these people? And that's when I found out about the Brony fandom. And so I was like, wow, these people actually are admitting to really liking the show. It has a fan base. And so I decided to rewatch all of season 1 again. And at that time, season 1 had just ended. The Best Night Ever had just come out. So I marathoned the whole entire season all over again. And then I came across my first Brony creation, and that was Ponies the Anthology. And immediately from that point on, I had become a Brony, and I just openly embraced the fandom and everything about it.
Not just a great fandom, but a great community. Of course, we have a few strange ones here and there. They're very few. Mm-hmm. Sadly, a little on the prestigious side, but very few.
And, the fandom's had its ups and downs, like every fandom. It happens within every fandom. I mean, like, not every fandom can escape from their little bit of controversy. That's kind of the sad thing, though, is that as well-meaning as the My Little Pony fan base can actually be sometimes, I mean, it's not without its controversy here and there.
Moving on, back to our main topic.
Mm-hmm.
What was your inspiration for Journey of the Spark?
It was originally an audio drama that I was producing based on an improvisational comedy show that me and 4 other bronies produced called My Little Pony: The Brony Edition. And on that show, we voice a lot of the characters. On that show, I voice Twilight, Fluttershy, Applejack, Celestia, and a few additional voices. But it was basically the story that I was coming up with, because at that time period, the only season 2 episode that had come out, this was back in November 2011. The only episode I think that had come out at that time was, one of the newer episodes during that time period was The Return of Harmony, part 1 and 2. And I was thinking to myself, what would happen? Like, how would I envision Friendship is Magic ending? What would the end to the entire show be? And so I knew immediately straight from the get-go that I wanted Discord to be the main villain, because he's such a fascinating villain, and I wanted to explore more things about the series that hadn't actually been done yet. However, it was really tricky for us to write at that time period, because in our parody show, we haven't even finished up season 1. And so in order for us to really do Journey of the Spark, we had to have been able to have season 2 material in order to work with it. So eventually in June of 2012, we had been pitching it around as a Brony Edition movie. Eventually, I just said to Edward Marmot and the rest of the people from Brony Edition who were coming onto the project to produce Journey of the Spark, I basically told them, we can't do this as a Brony Edition movie. Why don't we make it a Friendship is Magic movie? And so immediately, Journey of the Spark went under major revisions. The script that we were writing wasn't even really started yet. We only had like ideas and whatnot, and I know what I wanted the story to be. However, at that time period, it wasn't really a fully realized script yet. So what it is that I did is that I was thinking about people that I wanted to voice for the characters, and one of the first people that immediately came to mind was Miss Meredith Sims, who at that time was billed as one of the voice actresses for Fighting is Magic. She was voicing Twilight Sparkle in that, and I kept saying to myself, because at that time period, I was a complete nobody, I was saying, she's not going to want a voice for this project. I mean, she's in one of the biggest projects in the community, but I decided to give it a shot, and I decided to be brave, and I basically messaged Meredith on her YouTube channel and said, "Hi, my name is Eric Ridenour, and I'm writing and directing and producing a project called Journey of the Spark. Do you want to know some details on it? Would you be interested in voicing the characters?" And then she told me, because it's funny, David, because she was telling me that she wanted to know some more details about it, but she couldn't voice for it directly because she was studying abroad in Australia.
Wait. She's in Australia?
No, she's not anymore. But she has a boyfriend who actually lives here lives there in Australia. So she was studying overseas in Australia, and eventually, but she comes from Indiana. So she comes from the United States, but during the time that I wanted to cast her, she was out in Australia, and she said that she was going to be returning, to the States, at the end of the summer. So what had happened was that she basically said, "Yeah, I think this would be really interesting. Could you send me more details?" And I was just like, "Really? Are you serious?" And I was so excited. So I basically sent her this really lengthy pitch. Pretty much, which was basically a synopsis of the story, what I wanted to do with it, why I was making the project, and, what were some of the ideas we were already kicking around. And Meredith was just like overjoyed with the pitch, and she said yes. So she signed on to voice both Twilight and Fluttershy. And from then on in, things just kicked into high gear. And people were becoming so excited about the project that I just told myself, it can't be an audio drama anymore. This needs to be fully animated. This needs to be a film. And it eventually just kicked into high gear, and eventually I was getting people onto the project from, from other different, voice actors from a ton of different things, like Friendship is Witchcraft, the Pony.Mob series, Children of the Night, all these things, Epic Web Time, and all these, different projects. And I was meeting all these voice actors and all these people, and they were all very passionate about the script too. Eventually it blew itself out of proportion, and it became something that I wasn't even expecting, to really get that big, and it just did. And it completely blew me away.
Wow, that is just beyond incredible.
Yeah, it was great. And around the time that we were starting the script for Journey of the Spark, was also the month I went out to New Jersey with my friend Kyle, who is the lead film editor on Journey of the Spark. We went out to BronyCon, and I wanted to go because primarily I wanted to meet Lauren Faust. And eventually I did on the second and last day of the convention on Sunday, July 1st, I believe it was. And then what had happened basically was that I was waiting in line to get her autograph, and I was very nervous. Absolutely nervous. I was a wreck. But eventually I walked up to her, I was getting her autographed, and then just very quickly I said, "Hey, Lauren, I know that you're very busy and that you're short on time, but I'm actually directing an animated movie based on your show." And Lauren was absolutely thrilled by that. She thought it was, amazing that we were going, out of our way to spend at least 2 to 3 years to work on a film, like a feature film based on her show. And I basically asked her, like, what is your opinion on that? And to quote her words specifically, she told me, so long as you distribute the film for free, I think you should be okay in terms of, like, copyrights with Hasbro, but you could be definitely certain that you have my blessing. And I had the biggest freaking smile on my face. I shook her hand, like a ton of times. I said thank you over and over again. I like skipped pretty much out of that line. And I was just like hopping around for joy, and I was texting all of my, my cast and crew saying Lauren Faust approved of Journey of the Spark and she wants to see it.
I want to see it, mate. Everyone wants to see it. I'm just sorry that I can't be of further assistance to you.
Well, I mean, it's like, that's kind of the thing, is that a lot of people have been saying that they do want to help with voice acting and stuff like that, but considering the fact that we've pretty much filled up on every role, casting ended a long time ago. I mean, I don't want to have to always deny people, a chance to star in the film, but I mean, we had already gotten a lot of people, but there are additional roles that could come up in the future, and anything is possible. So for anybody who does want to actually try and get into the film or wants to actually audition for characters, I mean, we'll post something up in the future so that way people can actually go and see if they can get in it.
Indeed. Okay. I have to say this as a voice actor. One character who I've been craving to do in anything related to MLP is King Sombra.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Crystal Heart.
That's really good, actually.
Thank you. I can go quite low without modulating my voice, which I'm quite proud of. If you were ever to voice a character in My Little Pony, who would that be?
Man, that's actually kind of a tough question because, I mean, there's a ton of characters that I wish I could voice already. If I seriously wanted to, I wish I could voice Fancy Pants. He's one of my favorite one-shot characters. I love Fancy Pants.
I heard somewhere that they're going to try to bring him back somehow in season 4.
Are they seriously?
Only a rumor, but I hope it's true. There's also a rumor about him starting up a relationship with Rarity.
Oh, please. Oh, good lord. Yes, please make that happen.
Yes, that will just prove there is a god. Last time I saw him, he just cameoed in photos at Candlelight Wedding, didn't he?
Yeah, like they had like some sort of hinting of that. That was pretty cool. If I wanted to do a more serious choice, I wish that I could actually voice Shining Armor, actually. Yeah, it's funny. It's like funny because, every time I just like think of Shining Armor, I try to think to myself, okay, imagine if you're trying to like do your Michelangelo voice from Ninja Turtles, but actually try and make it sound serious and not so much like a surfer guy. Pretty much. So it's like, I have to like try and strain myself from going like, oh, Twiley, cowabunga, dude it.
Actually, that's really damn close.
So I mean, it's just like, oh, Twiley, oh, I missed you, kid. Something like that along those lines. I mean, no, but I'd love to voice him. I mean, if I ever got the chance to.
Yeah. Another character I could see you doing is Brayburn.
Oh, yeah, Brayburn's another one of my favorites, actually. I'd love to voice him.
Well, sometime soon I'm just going to do some random fun clips with My Little Pony. You want to be a part of that soon?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to, absolutely.
Cool. One thing I'm thinking of doing is writing up a monologue for King Sombra. And then just going to Silly Philly Studios and say, I'm nobody, but would you like to take a look at this?
Well, I mean, we have plans for season 2 and 3 of Brony Edition. So if we need somebody to voice Sombra, I'll be sure to call you.
Oh, please do.
Yes, definitely.
I've been aching to give him a shot. Mm-hmm. So right now, when it comes to Journey of the Spark, is it animators that you mainly need?
Yeah, pretty much. Artists and animators especially is what we look for on Journey of the Spark the most right now. We're very low on Flash animators, primarily. I mean, Yeah, which is where most of it is going to be. But that's why we're hoping anyway, that more applications will come in because Double Rainbow is actually finished. They screened like the first half of the episode, and we were watching a little bit of it, and we thought it was pretty impressive. So the people who actually are animating on that know what they're doing when it comes to animating with the My Little Pony characters. And primarily, I think that's going to be the thing for me that's really interesting about Journey of the Spark is that in terms of what happens in the script, I can't spoil anything for you guys. I can only give you like just a small little synopsis of what the story is about, but there's a lot of really huge and amazing things that happen in Journey of the Spark that's going to challenge a lot of the animators and the artists on the team because, we want to go all out. We want to make sure that this is a film that we want to make sure that this can actually be seen as, sort of like the ending to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And we wanted to really make sure that it actually was like a fitting conclusion. Is the movie canon to the original show? No, of course not. It's its own separate story, so take it for what it is. But we're going to test a lot of the people who worked on Double Rainbow as well as the people who are working on it now. And judging from what we've been working on so far, I can just say this right now. You guys are going to be amazed.
I look forward to the day, and we will definitely be patient for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about the Brony community. It always brings out the best in people. That never ceases to amaze me.
Mm-hmm. Not only just in terms of people actually doing good deeds, but it's led to some of the most imaginative and creative stuff I've ever seen in a fandom.
Yeah, when it comes to so many bronies, okay, 2 words. Wooden toaster.
Oh god, I love Glaze's music. I love that guy's music to death.
Yeah, Glaze is incredible. Okay, I'm just going to say this right now about 2 of the most popular MLP fanfictions. I love My Little Dashie. Okay, perhaps it's a little bit too much in the narrative side, but I love the idea, and you can still feel so much going on in that. Then I saw a sequel made in comic form by Walt's Brony, which was just absolutely incredible. However, I despise the Rainbow Factory. Okay, I get the guy was trying to be creative and he based it on a song, but it just doesn't contribute anything. There's no moral. It's just all violence and vulgar and takes a really innocent character and makes her Jigsaw. And I don't care how much of an original creation it is, Rainbow Dash just wouldn't do that. Her character, no matter how you see it, just wouldn't do that. In fact, she'd be doing the opposite. She'd be trying to rescue everyone from that place.
Try Sweet Apple Massacre. That's a hell of a lot worse.
Oh, that one disgusts me.
Yeah, oh man, that one's pretty bad, but...
I'm just glad that it's banned from any real good servers out there. Plus, there's no story structure.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll admit one thing about the Rainbow Factory. There was actually one pretty good line, which was actually set in the end, where Rainbow Dash, "Any last words?" and Scootaloo replies, "You have beautiful eyes." I'll admit that was pretty good, but everything else is just stupid and disgusting. But then, Glaze, along with Brony Dance Party and a couple of others, they created that music video Rainbow Factory.
Oh yeah, man.
Okay, that was awesome. That was something good that came out of that pathetic fanfiction.
Whenever I think of Rainbow Factory, I just think of the Rainbow Dash Presents parody video that they did on Rainbow Factory. Captain Hook, the Biker Gorilla.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I love Rainbow Dash Presents.
Yeah, that was pretty good. They also did a 3D SMF, I keep forgetting the program, but they made a 3D version of the Rainbow Factory, and it looks unreal. Twisted as hell, but unreal.
Again, that's what I love about this community. Not only does it bring out some great deeds, but it also brings out some seriously incredible talent.
Yeah, I mean it's insane, just like the sheer amount of talent that's gone into the that's gone into the fandom. There's been a lot of stuff in the fandom that I've relatively loved. I love the music, portion of the fandom. I mean, I love, the Beatle Bronies. I love Wooden Toaster, The Living Tombstone, Jackal App. Other ones I think that I really like are Sim Gretna. I'm trying to think some other ones that I really, really like. Oh yeah, I like San Joseph, the guy who did Carnival Cat versus Ponyville and Daddy Discord. Those are great songs.
That was genius.
Forest Rain is another one of my all-time personal favorites. Hey Miss Derpy, and then The Massive Smile Project, and then Great to Be Different are all fantastic songs. And he's writing the songs for the soundtrack for Journey of the Spark.
That is awesome.
So,
that is awesome.
Yep, so he's writing original musical numbers, and those are going to be great. I can't wait to see those come into fruition. But out of fanfics, my favorite fanfic out of all of them is a fanfic called Eternal by Device Heretic, and that's actually the fanfic that actually made Princess Celestia my favorite character out of the entire series. Its philosophy, its meaning, its morals, its overall story is like one of the most thought-provoking and emotional stories I've ever read in the pony community, and it's the main inspiration behind Journey of the Spark.
Huh.
So,
That's fascinating. What other things influenced you when it came to Journey of the Spark?
There was quite a few, actually. When I was going into Journey of the Spark, I basically told myself, I kind of want to make something along the lines of a movie in tone like The Secret of Nim. But then I also told myself, I want to make this like an 80s fantasy movie. So I looked at movies like Willow and The Dark Crystal and movies like that as like a piece of inspiration, just like, very Methodist, like 80s fantasy film, kind of something like that along those lines. And I decided I wanted to make something along those lines, something that was dark, something that was fun, something that was epic, and something that was emotional and thought-provoking, and tied it all together into something that, because, I mean, it's really funny because a majority of the main actors have read the script, and a lot of the cast and crew have read the script, and they say there's like a few problems here and there, but they're really easy fixes. But overall, every single person who's read the story has given it great positive feedback. So a lot of people say if there's anything about Journey of the Spark that people should look forward to, it is the story. Definitely.
And that's where it all counts. That's why I love directors like Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg. Even when they don't always succeed, you can feel the effort they put into the most important parts. Joss Whedon, Stanley Kubrick, Jane Campion, they always put the effort in the right places. Unlike a few others who shan't be named. Michael Bay hates movies.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I do too. But no, it's really funny because usually, I mean, obviously Spielberg's made a lot of like really high prolific films. I mean, for one, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. I mean, like some of those are, incredibly influential.
And then Lincoln. My God.
Oh yeah, Lincoln. I also really liked The Adventures of Tintin. I thought that was a great movie too.
That was great fun. There was no one else for it.
Yeah, and for me, but one of my personal favorite Spielberg films is actually AI, Artificial Intelligence.
Really?
Yeah, I really enjoy the heck out of that movie because it wasn't even supposed to be Spielberg's film from the beginning. It was actually a collaboration between him and Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick was actually the one who came up with a majority of the story, but he felt that in terms of the material, he wasn't suited to direct it, so he handed it off to Spielberg, who was a friend. So a lot of people usually tend to criticize Spielberg for the relatively sentimental ending at the end of AI, but that was not Spielberg. That was actually in Kubrick's original draft. So it was within Spielberg's wishes that he stay as closest to Stanley Kubrick's original draft as possible. And the ending to AI, for me anyway, I never viewed it as sentimental at all. In fact, I actually thought it was a relatively grim and very bittersweet ending if you really interpret it and think about it in the right way.
Yeah, when you put it that way. But at the same time, my gripe is still the same. My main gripe about that movie: everyone is just mean. Why is everyone so evil in that movie?
Well, see, and that's something that Stanley Kubrick did a lot with his films. It's like he was all about the realism and, like, like the very cold, very harshness of humanity. You see that in a lot in movies. Like one example is what is it? It was one of the first ones that he made. It was with I can't remember the name of it right off the bat. But 2001 has that feeling, very distinct feeling of like cold, like coldness. It's very, like, that was like a feeling that he always got across in his films. And in AI, even though the movie's not directed by him, that movie just spews Kubrick like everywhere. It's a Spielberg film, but it feels so much like Stanley Kubrick. And I think it does succeed in that fact. I mean, even though it has its moments of sentimentality, I mean, that's one thing that Spielberg's always been famous for. I mean, that movie as a whole is not very lighthearted, like, at all, when I really think about it.
Not in the least. Not in the least.
Yeah, it's not.
I'll admit I'm not a fan of AI. I don't despise it like so many others do. In fact, I'm actually going to say that I think it's a little bit on the over-hated side.
Yeah, I can say, yeah, I can say that. Mm-hmm.
Just, yeah, again, even if it is Stanley Kubrick's touch, it is just way too nasty. Yes, I get that there are nasty people out there, but they're not every single person in the street.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about My Little Pony. Even in a perfect world, the bad has to exist with the good. And sometimes there is some things that are truly evil and nasty and despicable and cruel. But they're the minority. And MLP actually serves as a reminder. Oh, sure, it's a cute show with cute characters and fun stories. But it also shows that the bad must work with the good, and that there will always be more good than bad.
And it was funny because with Lauren's vision, she wanted to make it apparent that, Equestria is not a perfect world. Bad things do happen in Equestria. Bad things can happen, and there can be bad people. But you don't have to do it in a way that is so cynical. Like, you don't always have to do it in a tone that way. You can do it in the most lighthearted and actually non-cynical tone as possible.
And she did that perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually put My Little Pony up there with some of the great cartoons like Tiny Toons, or better yet, Animaniacs. It's in the same league. I also love the homages they have there. They have a homage to Star Wars. They have a homage to Star Trek. I mean, they got Q, John Delancey, to voice Discord, for God's sake. Enough said. One thing I would like them to do is tackle other things. You know what? I want them to tackle Ed Wood. Have a pony trying to be a director and just fail miserably, and yet still have that passion.
That's why I like the Tim Burton film Ed Wood, because it's like a semi-biographical film. I mean, there are pieces of fiction in there, but it goes to show that he made movies because he was passionate about his field. And even though he came under major scrutiny from a ton of his peers, he continued going because that was his dream. So it's like, it's a film that both mocks him and celebrates him, like, at the same time. And it does a brilliant job of that.
Absolutely. I just really do feel sorry for that guy. And yet, a man who tries so hard, and even when he fails, he tries harder, there's something to admire there.
Yeah, I mean, I watch Plan 9 from Outer Space with friends, and we were laughing at it. I mean, but it's not a bad movie. It's a so bad it's good movie, but it's not a bad movie. I mean, if you get enjoyment out of it, then they must have done something right.
He makes beautifully bad films. They're still enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Another example of that would be the first 3 Twilight movies.
I would also put, for me, I would put the Super Mario Brothers movie in there. It's my guilty pleasure. It's a so bad it's good movie, but hey, I mean, it has some things that I like about it, so I can't necessarily say it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
No. But now I'm curious. In your opinion, what is the worst movie you've ever seen?
The Nutcracker in 3D.
Wow. I didn't expect you to answer so quickly.
Oh, God. I have never seen a movie more worse than that. Out of my top 5, that one's number 1. A few other ones that I've seen on my list, I think, would include Garbage Pail Kids.
Oh, Garbage Pail Kids. That is the Holocaust of films in my eyes.
If I had to say, if there was like any mainstream film from a director that I really like, that just, well, because I tell this to people all the time, I cannot hate a movie unless it legitimately pisses me off. I mean, that's always been my motto. But if there's one movie from a really respected director that I really like, that just angered me so much, it's The Brothers Grimm by Terry Gilliam. That movie just made me so angry. Man. That movie, it just doesn't know who it's aimed for. I mean, it's too dark for children. It's too juvenile for adults. Like, it was poised as a family film. Like, I mean, that's what it was marketed as. You know, it's like a movie that you can go see with your family. And, you get some of the most disturbing and some of the darkest imagery that I've seen in a movie marketed towards children. But then at the same time, you get very kiddish, very juvenile, humor for the kids that adults can't really relate to. So it's like, it's just a mess. I mean, like, it just doesn't know who it's aimed at. And it doesn't really have like a cohesive flow with it at all. And I was just sitting there and it just kept making me angry because it's like, who are you targeting with this film? I mean, you're certainly not getting me invested.
Yeah, and I really don't get that. That's Terry Gilliam, a man who's known for being so careful that he's actually too careful for his work.
It was studio intervention, I think, a lot. Because, I mean, Terry Gilliam's one of the most unluckiest directors, I think, in the world. But with the Brothers Grimm, the main problem behind that was that he was clashing a lot with the people from the Weinstein Company. So when you have studios clashing with the directors, that always leads to a very disjointed experience. You don't necessarily know where exactly the director's vision actually got across and what the studio wanted, necessarily. That's why I actually defend Tim Burton when it comes to the remake of Planet of the Apes, because Tim got screwed on that movie by 20th Century Fox like crazy. He was so fed up with the studio constantly hounding on him, he would storm off the set and he wouldn't be seen for hours.
Not to mention that the man has a serious phobia of apes and monkeys. But then there are times where I think that they don't get in enough.
Yeah.
A good example? Okay, I'll bring it up. A movie that's hurt me really badly. Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, do I hate that movie.
It's funny because I enjoyed the first Transformers because I thought it was dumb. I thought it was a dumb summer blockbuster. It was fun. But you could definitely see where the producers were kind of, sort of holding Michael Bay back. He's like saying, okay, well, maybe you probably shouldn't do that. Maybe that might not be, okay to do. But then when that movie made a ton of money, basically the studios was like, okay, Michael, you pretty much have all the creative freedom to do whatever the hell you want. Go and film the movie that you want to. Okay.
And then he decides to try and bring back minstrel theater.
Minstrel theater?
In robot form with Skid and Mudflap. And I feel really sorry for the actors who did them. One of them was Tom Kenny.
Yeah, Tom Kenny.
SpongeBob, enough said, as well as countless others. And the other is Reno Wilson, Saz, from Final Fantasy XIII.
Really?
Really.
Really?
A great character actor got that screwed.
Wow. Just wow, man. That's brutal.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's brutal.
Michael Bay actually did apologize for the film, saying that it was just a piece of crap. He didn't do that with Pearl Harbor, so that's got to be saying something.
Yeah.
Saying that the writers left him, which is actually true to an extent.
Yeah, a lot of Revenge of the Fallen's problems mainly came at the fact that when they wanted to write the script for that thing, the writer's strike was going on. So pretty much whoever was, credited for writing the screenplay shouldn't even get credit for that. That was all Michael Bay's shit right there.
Yeah, except that the two main writers actually left with at least one good third of the script. And then they left to join the writer's strike. And then they left the rest to Aaron Kruger.
Which is funny because Aaron Kruger actually wrote the screenplay for the Brothers Grimm. So
yeah, wow.
Kind of comes all full circle in this conversation.
Doesn't it?
Yep, it does.
There are so many things wrong with that film, but then there are times where I just don't exactly know who to blame. Though again, I think it goes back to Sir Bay, because it was once stated that his two favourite characters from that movie were Skids and Mudflap.
What? Why?
I don't know. He's a strange man. No, he's like a little immature kid who gets all the toys. For better or worse.
Well, okay, that I can definitely understand.
Yeah, when it comes to being a director, viciously untalented. As a businessman, though, he's probably a genius.
That I can actually see.
I have no respect for him as a director at all.
Well, hey, I mean, I don't either. I mean, I admit I liked movies like Bad Boys, and Armageddon's one of my guilty pleasures, but nothing really about his work is really substantial. I mean, there are much better directors when it comes to making pure up popcorn fests with no sort of substance to them. I mean, hell, I'd rather watch a movie by Roland Emmerich than I would Michael Bay. And that's saying a lot, really.
Indeed it is, but with Roland Emmerich, at least he tries.
Yeah, he tried. Well, I mean, Independence Day, people like that movie.
Yeah, it was stupid and it didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But it was still good fun.
Yeah, but then you also got shit like 2012, which,
for what it's worth, is pretty well acted. But I think its purpose was to freak out so many people who are already paranoid about so many things.
Yeah.
Okay, you really want to know what happened on the 21st of December last year? What happened on that day was Gangnam Style reaching 1 billion views. That's what the Mayans predicted, okay? The most successful YouTube video of all time.
Pretty much, yeah. Hell, I mean, even when I went to Equestria LA, to the Southern California My Little Pony convention out here, I could not escape Gangnam Style. There was a random impromptu Gangnam Style flash mob during the second voice actors panel on Sunday, and it was amazing. Just randomly, the people who were, controlling the panel, like they were doing like all the AV work, they were streaming it live. Somebody decided to start playing the instrumental for Gangnam Style in the background, and then the voice actors were encouraging people to actually do it. So then one guy cosplaying as Snowflake, the really buff Pegasus from Hurricane Fluttershy.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite background pony.
Yeah, he started coming out and he started doing the Gangnam Style dance, and then everybody started joining in, and it was amazing, and it was hilarious in every single way.
Please tell me there's a video of that.
Yes, there is a video of it.
That just made my day.
I gotta link that to you.
Please do.
It is amazing. And like, it was so funny because as the whole thing was going on, the voice actors like Tara Strong and Brenda Critchlow, they were taking pictures and they were filming it on their iPhones. It was amazing.
Wait, you got to meet Tara Strong?
I met at Equestria LA, what was funny was that when I went to that convention, almost everybody knew who I was. Because they had heard about Journey of the Spark in some way. They, heard that I was a director or something like that. So the people that I met at that convention, I met Tara, I met Lauren twice. That was my second time meeting Lauren Faust. I met Amy Keating Rogers, Cindy Morrow, Michelle Krieber, And then from the Brony community, Final Draft from Everfree Radio, met him. Met Saberspark and Paleo from Brony Breakdown. Met AC Race Best from the Brony's Reactive videos. In terms of musicians, I met Mando Pony. I met Alex S. And just a ton of other people. Hot Diggity Demon was another person I met at the convention too. He's pretty cool, actually. But yeah, almost all of them pretty much had heard about me or had heard about my work. And it was amazing, David, because I was waiting in line to play Fighting is Magic. Like, they had like a working version of it. And I was just waiting in line with this one guy to play it. We were talking, and then, Meredith's voice clips were coming up in the game. It was like, my friend actually voiced in this game. And he's like, really? Who? Meredith Sims? Oh, yeah, I know about her. It's like, yeah, she's the main voice actress in my movie, Journey of the Spark. And then he had, like... He just, like, his eyes widened. He was, like, freaking out, and he's like, holy shit, you're that guy? Oh, man, it's so cool to meet you. He was just, like, fanboying like crazy, and then he took me over to the artist alley and started buying me all this free stuff. And started giving it to me. He just started buying all this stuff. It's like, here, take it. It was amazing.
That sounds like one hell of an experience indeed, mate.
Yeah, it was great. It was amazing. I actually pop up in at Lauren Faust's panel in a recorded video for that. I'll have to send the link for that one too, because the experience that I had at Lauren's panel was it made me cry. It made me tear up. It was great, because when I went up to that microphone, I was in a room of probably over 1,000 plus bronies, pretty much, and I was telling Lauren that I was a huge fan of her work. I've been following her stuff ever since I was little, and if she could give a shout out to the people behind Journey of the Spark. And as soon as the name got dropped, as soon as Journey of the Spark got dropped, there were murmurs amongst the crowd. There were people talking about it. And as soon as I left that microphone, thunderous applause. And a ton of people waiting in the Q&A line asking me to give them a brohoof. It was oh god, it was just an incredible experience. And that's the strange thing about Journey of the Spark, is that, I've never been popular. I've never really been, commended for anything that I've really done. So to have like a room of 1,000 people know who I am, actually, to give me that sort of encouragement, and, for people to be really excited as they are about the project as a whole, that's something I've never experienced before.
Indeed. That is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And I get emails, on my Tumblr and on the production blog for Journey of the Spark all the time about, how people are commending me and how inspiring I am to them for going out and doing something as ambitious as I am. It's crazy what I'm attempting to do. And I know that fully. I know that it's a very crazy concept, but I think it can be done. And I'm willing to go as long as I need to in order to make it a reality.
That inspires me too. I've been trying to get a particular project of mine off the ground for 4 years now.
Hey, I've been working on Journey of the Spark since November 2011. So it's already been almost 2 years now that I've been working on Journey to the Spark, and we're hoping that the movie will get released sometime in 2015, because we had to push it back. 2014 just wasn't going to cut it for us, but, that's another 2 years that we want to spend to make sure that it's as good of a film as we can possibly make it. I don't want to release a bad movie.
Oh, come on, it's not in your bones. Well, okay, I know this is meant to be an interview, even though we've actually had a conversation as well as an interview. I have a question. Have you ever heard of the law of attraction?
I do not know, actually.
A very well-written book called The Secret, and was made into a movie, describes how it works. It describes that what you visualize, you materialize. And if you see and feel what you want, it's something that you will get. But if you see and feel something that you don't want, you will be given what you don't want.
Right.
So don't think that you don't want to make a bad film.
Exactly.
Think that you're going to make one of the best films ever made, because I have a feeling that it's going to be that. Something that people will learn from.
Yeah, and I mean, like the movie's already getting a ton of press and everything like that. I mean, I'm going to be a special guest of honor at Pwn 3Con in Omaha, Nebraska. That's happening Mother's Day weekend, May 10th through the 12th, and they're getting me out there, so I'm going to be a special guest, which is something I've never done before, actually. And then I'm going up to Everfree Northwest, which is in Seattle, Washington. Going to be doing that the 4th of July weekend. And then finally ending it off at BronyCon with a massive panel in the first weekend of August. That's going to be up in Baltimore, Maryland.
That is amazing. I wish I was in America on days like this. Though we had a PonyCon that came and went not too long ago. First of its kind. Still magnificent for what it was. Though there were rumours that Lauren Faust and Tara Strong were going to be there.
Ooh.
Pity that they weren't, because I would have spoken to them about you.
Yeah, I mean, Lauren's a very busy person, so, I mean, when we were at Equestria LA, I actually asked her if it would be okay if we sent her stuff from the movie on her DeviantArt page, so I sent her a message. I, of course, did not expect a reply because of how insanely busy that woman is, but... I mean, whatever.
It really does fascinate me how she can still have spare time for herself.
Yeah, it's crazy that she's able to actually reply to the Brony community and answer questions when she's so busy.
Same with Tara Strong. She's now perhaps the most employed voice actress around.
Yeah.
And she still has spare time for herself, her family, and her fans.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's incredible. Absolutely.
She may not always be instantly there, but she still tries hard. Wonderful woman. One thing that really made my day was when on Facebook, Tara Strong liked my condescending Wonka meme. I remember very clearly what it said. Oh, you think voice acting is easy? Please tell me about all the times when you weren't just being yourself. And as you probably know, that was a retort to Chris Rock for what he said about voice acting a while back. I get the feeling that he's a really nice guy and he really didn't mean that. But one, you do not insult a craft that's been good to you.
Yeah.
And two, there are different ways to deliver satire.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have to wrap this up now. But before we head off, are you familiar with Inside the Actor's Studio?
Yes, I am, actually. One of my favorite interviews was the Robin Williams interview.
Oh, yes.
That one's great.
That was brilliant. So I'm going to do to you what he does to his guests before he passes it on to his students. The questionnaire. The concept was originated by a French TV personality, David Pivot, on his show Apostrophes. And it's 10 questions. First question, what is your favorite word?
Absolutely.
What is your least favorite word?
Indefinitely.
What turns you on?
Women with brown hair.
What turns you off?
Women with blonde hair.
Oh, don't tell that to Tara Strong now.
Oh, no. If I wanted to answer that seriously, though, I don't know, actually.
Fair enough. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, God, that's a really hard one. I love the sound of water.
Oh, yes.
Underwater, underwater, rivers, waterfalls, anything involving water.
Great answer. You should do martial arts. You'll belong.
I did, actually, for a while.
Ooh, nice. What sound or noise do you hate?
Clapping, actually. The sound of clapping actually kind of unnerves me. Especially, when I clap myself, like I'm doing right now, that sound doesn't particularly bother me. But if the clap is like really loud, like that, I can't stand a sound like that.
That's an Aspergian trait, trust me.
Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Good answer.
Yeah, I drop the F-bomb, I think, far too much for my own good. I get it from my mom.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
If I can't be a film director, I'd actually like to be a musician, a singer. I'd like to get into music, because I love music. I just never really thought I was really good at it.
I say do it anyway. As a guy who's technically a classically trained singer, long story, I realize that music is just something you can't live without.
Mm-hmm.
What profession would you like not to do?
I probably wouldn't want to get into business, because I'm terrible with managing money, enough as it is, so I don't think I would want to be somebody like an accountant or anything like that. I also probably wouldn't want to get into the medical field, particularly dentistry, because I'm terrified of dentistry as a whole. So that's, I think, a profession I'd want to stay as far away from as possible.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I guess I have two answers for that. One serious one, and then one joking one. My joking one, getting that off of the way, I'd like to hear God say, "God hears you, Eric. Welcome to heaven." The second one would probably be, I don't know. I don't know what I would want to hear him say. Maybe probably something just like along the lines of like, welcome. Here you find that, here you find yourself loved. Here you find your work not tarnished. Here you'll find that there is room for love and appreciation no matter where you walk.
Great answers. I love it. I know what I'd like to hear God say to me if I arrive.
What would that be?
Brohoof, you should be the official voice of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I can see that happening, actually.
Yeah, I would be able to live a very happy afterlife if he said that to me. Well, thank you very much for your time, Eric. It was a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you absolutely for, there I go, said my favorite word. Thank you very much for inviting me on and allowing me to be myself.
Anytime. And I wouldn't want you to have been anyone else. That would just be cruel and unfair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening, everyone. I am David J.G. Doyle, also known as Ozzyroth and Ozzyroth7.
And I am Eric Ridenour, and thank you for listening.
You can subscribe to Eric on FIM Spark Movie on YouTube. Farewell for now, and in the words of Stephen Fry, if you cannot maintain a great example, then please become a horrible warning.